Good afternoon from Bucharest and the offices of the Council of Europe, where I am with Virgil Spiridon, who is the former Deputy Chief of Romanian Police and the current Head of Operations of the Cybercrime Programme Office of the Council of Europe, in, as I say, whose offices we are in. Virgil, thank you so much for inviting me here today, and looking forward very much to talking about the work of the Cybercrime Programme Office. But could we start perhaps by understanding a little more about your own background, both as the Deputy Chief of Romanian Police and now as that Head of Operations, which you've been since 2017.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Indeed, I used to work for the Romanian police for 20 years on cybercrime, organized crime. I used to be the head of the cybercrime unit and director of the organized crime, and then deputy chief of the Romanian police for 3 years. And since 2017, I've been working for the Council of Europe as a head of operation of the Cybercrime Program Office, which is based in Romania and is responsible for the implementation of the programs on capacity building, on cybercrime capacity building all over the globe.
It's an absolutely key area, because your work is not just about improving interagency cooperation and enhancing international cooperation, but a key area is actually protecting children online. So there are those more general aims of your office's work, also this very specific and emotive, quite rightly, aim of protecting children online. How do you go about doing that? What's the way in which you and your team are working on this?
We have in the office 5 projects under implementation, 5 projects on capacity building, and in the framework of these projects we provide support to criminal justice authorities from different countries on cybercrime and electronic evidence. Capacity building support meaning to reinforce the legislation, reinforce capacities, training programs, to assist them also on some strategic developments, strategies, policies on cybercrime, to develop interagency cooperation or even international cooperation, enhance international cooperation, to have legislation in place. This is the first step. Have the legislation, and then you can start building the capacities and have the specialized units to enforce them, and in order to conduct successful investigations and prosecutions. When it comes to online child sexual exploitation and abuse, this is a topic of concern which is high on the agenda of many states, many governments, many criminal justice authorities, for different reasons. The risk for the children, also with the COVID impact, the kids are spending more time online. For classes, schools are online, not only to communicate like in the past, and they're more exposed and there are more risks. We also had another project, which was a joint project with the Children's Rights Division, because the topic is mainly covered by another division from the Council of Europe, which is called Children's Rights Division. But we had a joint project on online child sexual exploitation to put together resources and experience from the cybercrime, our division, and the Children's Rights Division, and to try to reinforce capacities of some countries from Western Balkans and also Eastern Partnership region to align the legislation, but also to provide some training for law enforcement and magistrates. Also in the current that project ended actually, and it was a successful one with good achievements and improvements in the countries. That project ended, and our colleagues from the Children's Rights Division are working on the continuation. However, from our part, from Cybercrime Division, in our projects, when we come across any request or for support from countries on this topic, We are happy to assist in legislation. We've done a lot of activities on legislation, cybercrime legislation, but also legislation because there are provisions for incriminated online child sexual exploitation in the Budapest Convention. There are provisions on procedural powers to be used for investigating online child exploitation on the Budapest Convention, but there is also the Lanzarote Convention, which is actually the main legal framework when it comes to online child sexual exploitation. And we work together with the colleagues responsible for this convention and to support countries in harmonizing their legislation. The two conventions are complementary, and so this is one example how we support countries with the legislation. Another example is with the training. Also, we developed some training materials under the project which I mentioned before, and on specific on online child sexual exploitation, and we supported. One example is for the Turkish magistrates. We provided them two training courses on online child sexual exploitation, courses that were covering legislation, investigative measures, how to investigate the aspects of interagency cooperation and also international cooperation. So it's quite an important topic, and as I said, it's not only on the responsibility of the Cybercrime division within the Council of Europe, and we also work with other international partners to make sure that all the standards are promoted to the countries and to benefit and join efforts and resources.
So it's clear that the legislation is the cornerstone here, that much rests on your and your colleagues' detailed knowledge of the various key pieces of international legislation, and it appears assisting jurisdictions and countries in providing local or rather national legislation that then gives the best opportunity of promoting an international challenge and response to cybercrime taking place. So it's fascinating that this centre of excellence is in Romania. So do tell me, why Romania do you think was chosen as the site for this centre of excellence?
First, because the government of Romania put an offer for the Council of Europe to host this centre here, and then because there is quite an important experience within the criminal justice authorities in Romania, police, prosecutors, Ministry of Justice, when it comes to fighting against cybercrime. That has been recognized by the Council of Europe, and it was a decision to have the office here, and we are working closely with the Romanian authorities and in order to get some support from them for our activities, and also to promote their efforts and standards, which are standards relevant also for other countries, and best practices to be followed.
You mentioned the effect that the pandemic has had on behaviour of children. I imagine that the global pandemic has had an impact on the behaviour and the way of working of you and your team as well. Have you found that?
Indeed, there is an impact of COVID-19 on not only on the work of the criminal justice authorities, and we've been trying to assist them to have the proper response and to have the right tools in place to respond to these challenges. We see another increase in the cybercrime. How big is this increase? Because that was the trend of cybercrime from the past years, or is because of COVID? That is difficult to assess. However, there is an increase, and there are some challenges, and when it comes to offenses, we don't necessarily see new offenses, but rather targeting or focusing medical and healthcare systems, or people teleworking, or children taking schools online. So there is an impact, and also on the fact that the representatives of the criminal justice authorities, they had to work from home, which I guess it's easy to understand how difficult it is to conduct the police work from home, and with limited resources. Then priorities for some police forces were reconsidered during this period, maybe for other offenses which were more visible or in the rise in this period. We try to assist and to continue with activities, capacity building activities, and it was we also in a way impacted our activities, the COVID-19, because we had to mitigate this impact and move to online activities. Unfortunately, I said unfortunately because we are missing that interaction from the physical activities. When you conduct a training for magistrates or for law enforcement, if you miss the interaction, the face-to-face discussions, that is hard for the lecturers to know that on the other side, that the information is well received, well understood, and some questions, follow-up questions. So interactivity is not at the same level. For us, the same. To know better what are the needs of the countries and challenges they are facing in this period. That was hard. With the online is still limited. However, I think we learned also a lot from this period. We learned that quite a number of activities can be conducted online with the coordination. I mean, just as an example, in the last year we conducted more than 400 activities. Workshops, conferences, training activities. So we could have not done this with the in-person activities with the physical presence. And there are days when we've been in the same day in Nauru, then in Lebanon, and then in Ukraine. So,
in the same day, So moved from the Lebanon virtually to the Ukraine in a moment.
Exactly. So it's in a way it's easier because you can reach out to the counterparts and countries quite easy, because it's not only for us but also for them to be more familiarized and get used to these online video conferences, tools, and online activities. I said there are limitations. We will be happy to resume with in-person activities, but we still have to be cautious and see what is going to happen next. And on top of that, I mean, we not only mitigated the impact, but we also try to develop some tools. And we are working on developing an online training platform, which we hope to be finalized by June this next year, 2022. And so that will be a interactive platform to be used by us for online activities, because I assume that let's say even the pandemic will go away, we will still continue to some extent with the online activities. And that online training platform will be a very important tool for delivering some activities, and also for the countries, because we want to make this platform to be used to make it available to the countries to use it for free. So also as a tool for them, because some of them might lack necessary resources to develop such tools. So to try to sum up, there are some good lessons which we learned from the pandemic on the impact on the crime in the field, on the ground, the criminal justice responses, how to adapt to them, and hopefully we manage also to support countries in a way to be better prepared for future crises. I guess that will be the aim for the future, because I assume that there might be other crises also.
Well, let's hope there's very few, but there's almost an inevitability that at some point there will be further such crises. We've touched on the protecting children online. Of course, there's far more that goes into cybercrime, ranging from the personal risk to children and others, and also the financial risk. You've covered there some of the future, looking at the capacity building and bringing in some of the learning there from the pandemic, the ability to use this online material in order to be almost in two places at one time, or more than two places at one time. What would you like to see? Are there things that you would like to see happening in various jurisdictions, in various countries around the world, that you think would further assist this global work? Not just you and your team as your head of operations and your team, but the legislations, the nationalities, the countries actually doing more to help this process.
For the countries, it's important to have a sort of strategic approach on cybercrime, because cybercrime impacts also other areas of the societies. Then we talk about electronic evidence, which is relevant also for other crime areas. Pretty much in any investigation nowadays, you may see present a cell phone and an email has been used to communicate or to be in contact with some people. So I think countries, criminal justice authorities, those to decide, the decision makers, they should be aware that a strategy for tackling cybercrime is required. And when I say strategy, I mean to think on all the steps from the legislation with the specialized units, with the resources for them, because also they need to think on in general on the impact of the technology. If you look at the assessment on the impact of the technology on the crimes, you may see some movement. I mean, there are still a lot of traditional crimes happening, but technology is present, in many of them, and it's important to have a set of to change the mind, to change the mindset here with the technology, with the crime, and how you approach the crime, how you develop training programs for your staff, how you recruit your staff. So this is for the future, because that will impact everything in our societies, with the digitalization, with the digital ID for the citizens. So everything will be quite relevant also for the police in the future. And if I refer specifically to cybercrime and what else we can do from our perspective, I would like to mention about the second additional protocol to the Budapest Convention for an enhanced international cooperation, which has been adopted on 17th of November by the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, which, by the way, it's a different organization than the European Union and the Council of European Union. Council of Europe is an international organization with the headquarters in Strasbourg, and has 47 member states, and promotes the human rights and rule of law. The second additional protocol on enhanced cooperation on cybercrime and electronic evidence will be open for signature next year for the countries interested to join. And then the novelty is that there will be legal tools for the countries to work with the criminal justice authorities from the countries to work directly and get access directly to the electronic evidence in another jurisdiction. Let's say an authority from Romania can request information from a service provider
and go direct. Go direct
to the service provider in UK to request information.
And there's an obligation on the service provider in the UK to provide that information?
Once this will be, when the, let's say, UK will be party to the protocol, indeed that will be enforced by the domestic legislation from UK. So that will be quite a major step ahead in respect to the international cooperation on cybercrime and electronic evidence.
That seems a very remarkable step forward, and one that forces needs to be aware of throughout the world.
Indeed, and this is not only relevant for cybercrime. It's all because we are talking about electronic evidence and cooperation with the service provider.
Yes.
And this is actually beneficial for other crimes.
Just remind me, please, of the legislation that has only just been passed. So I think you said the 17th of November. So as we're recording this, just a handful of weeks ago, and there was very specific legislation that you mentioned.
Yes,
in that
it's
context.
about the second additional protocol, which has been adopted by the Committee of Ministers and will be open for signature on, let's hope, May next year. So okay. There is a need for time for the countries to make the necessary preparations, internal preparations to accede to the protocol and also to harmonize the domestic legislation. However, this is only not the first step, because the negotiations took like 4 years for these legal instruments, but so now we are in the situation to have the final text approved, and once will be open for signature, that countries interested can join, and then to implement and enforce. And
yes.
Definitely there is need for further work with the countries, with the criminal justice authorities from the countries to make it work, and also with the private sector. But there are new tools, legal tools, that will enhance the international cooperation. That is important.
And given that you said early on that the legislation is the cornerstone, that's a very important move. Virgil, I think that's a very good point at which we should conclude this fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the invitation here to the Council of Europe building in Bucharest in Romania, and very best wishes to you and your team in countering this scourge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.